Welcome back to the Council of Elrond, a Lord of the Rings podcast. If you're wondering why the intro music is an old 8-bit video game style, well, it's because in today's episode, we are going to go through the history of some of the best video games that featured Middle-earth, and we are going to reminisce a little bit ourselves in our favourites. I'm Dave, and with me as usual is my co-host and fellow Mellon Head, Johnny.
I love to play games, they're better than real life.
So on to Lord of the Rings games. The very first Middle-earth video game of all time was actually not Lord of the Rings but The Hobbit, and it came out in 1982. It was a text-based game and it was loosely based on the book. So this was actually before Lord of the Rings was mainstream and it only had the book lore to go off. The way the gameplay would work was text would pop up describing the player's surroundings, such as, "You are in a much-used troll's cave," aided with a crude pixelated picture of a crappy... I don't know.
Class.
It was supposed to look like a troll's cave, but it would look crap. It would show items that your character can see and where there's a door or a path. The player can type prompts in such as "get sword" or "attack goblin," and the game would send back text such as "Thorin finds the goblin cleaver and says time to slay some orc." So, things like that. It would be kind of
savage,
general, and you'd find yourself typing in random words and hoping that the program responds, but that's how it worked.
Class.
You can move in certain directions by just typing north, south, east or west, and also, interestingly, the game was in real time, meaning that the events were happening simultaneously to the player's actions. So you could type wait, like the words wait, or the word wait, and a message may say dawn arrives and orcs draw near, and then you could do something with that, or else you could just type wait again and another message would say noon and the goblins have passed but it starts to rain. So the player basically, when you're in the game, you're in real time. You can.
If you're a very cautious person, you could just be like, wait, don't do it then. Yeah, wait, and everything's dead.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and Sauron has reclaimed the ring. You're like, I think I waited a bit too long there, guys. Sorry about that.
Yeah, exactly. Like a text pops up saying, "You have awoken up," and you just type in, "Go back to sleep."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sleep until the War of the Ring has ended.
It sounds really cool. But what is who is this aimed at? As in terms of
nerds,
like what kind of console was this aimed? Like as in, it wasn't like back in that time. Everybody didn't have like an actual personal computer, like a PC at home. People didn't have. It didn't like, oh, this is a game coming out on the Xbox or it's coming out on PlayStation. So did you need to go to an arcade to play this game, or where was it for home use?
It was for home use for PCs, and I think it was on what are those thingies called? Like a floppy disk thing.
All right.
Yeah, so I think it is just for home use. Like it's not you'd spend days in an arcade trying to get anywhere with the game. Like it did take a really long time to do. The player, the player in question, so whoever is playing the game, controls Bilbo, but is accompanied by two NPCs. Do you know what NPCs are for our non-nerd audiences?
MPC.
NPCs. N for Nigeria.
No, I have no idea. Nerdy personal computer.
No, an NPC is a non-playable character. So you play as Bilbo. And there's two NPCs, Thorin and Gandalf. So you can't be either of them.
RPG.
That is another one that will come up actually. So
I know,
hope you're thinking about what that is.
It means bazooka.
Yeah, exactly. So every character and object in the world is simulated simultaneously, with NPCs pursuing their own goals under their own AI. Kind of like how we talked about Massive in our techniques and technology episode.
Simon says simulate simultaneously.
Exactly. So this is kind of similar to Skyrim or The Sims, where you could be doing one thing with your character and in the background other characters are interacting with each other and whatever. But the computer does not know which character is the player, which is also interesting, and it just applies all the rules impartially to all. So anyone could die at any time, and this predictably led to absolute chaos because plot critical characters would be devoured by wolves before you even meet them.
Oh, class.
Thorin would stop to sing about gold while surrounded by murderous goblins. Gandalf storms about the map like a slightly senile force of nature, seizing vital things from your inventory and just running off to find other shiny new things and throwing them around the place.
Gandalf the magpie. He's just like, oh, that looks nice and shiny.
He's such a pain in the arse. Yeah, whatever they built into Gandalf's AI, I think he was like more of like a gold seeking jewelry hunter. I don't know. He
gold digger.
Always, yeah, he was a gold digger. Anytime, like I watched a couple of walkthroughs of people playing the game on YouTube, and Gandalf just seemed to be a big pain in the arse for everyone.
Oh, it's so funny.
So in a playthrough I watched on YouTube, on at least one occasion, the player arrived in Rivendell to find Gandalf holding a green door and Elrond dead on the floor. So that ruined the game. The design was just far too ambitious for computers of 1982. It had a couple of sequels, including 1985's Lord of the Rings Game 1 and 1987's Shadows of Mordor, which weren't as well received as the original, because even though it had loads of problems with the game, it was still seen as a massive technological advancement for its time.
Okay, cool. And what did it look like? Was it like a view from the top, a plan view? Was it a kind of 2D like Mario kind of thing? What could you actually see on the screen?
No, this was before anything. This is how nerdy it is.
It was just text. It was only text.
It was text, but like I said, it might say you are entering a troll's used cave or whatever, and then there'd be one pixelated image. And you could maybe make out like a troll's cave, and then it would just flash into the next screen, and it would just be loads of text. It'd be text describing stuff, and then you'd have the user's bar below where you would type in something like wait or pick up sword or whatever.
Right. Okay.
And then it would update.
So when I want to read a book, I usually open it and see if it's got loads of pictures. And if it doesn't have loads of pictures, I put it away. Exactly. So this text. What do you mean text? No, I can't handle it. It's like that scene in like Family Guy where he's like, look, DVDs. Oh, books.
Oh, look, more DVDs. Oh, no, books. It's classic.
DVDs! Ah, books.
Yeah, like it's pretty much, now that I think of it, it's just kind of playing a book. Like you're basically just reading a story, and you get to interact. It's kind of like, do you remember Bandersnatch, the Black Mirror episode?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that, except that is a thing where you get choice A or B. This is a little bit more open world, where you get to type in lots of keywords and just hope they connect.
It's very cool that they had such an open world game in 82. That's it's really incredible, cool. Yeah. It's a really kind of modern idea. A lot of the later Lord of the Rings games were very linear.
Yeah, no, it's very cool. But moving on to 1990, they brought out J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings Volume 1, which is probably the worst name for a game ever. I don't know why they couldn't just call it Lord of the Rings, but
just rolls off the tongue.
J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the rolls off the shelves. No, it did not. But this game actually followed up Ralph Bakshi's 1978 Lord of the Rings cartoon movie, and it featured some of the clips from the movie, but made no attempt to keep the characters looking like Bakshi's whatsoever.
Did it keep any of the music? Did it keep that song where there's a whip? There is a whip.
Is that what that's from? Yeah,
I don't know. I think so.
Yeah, you're right. I was about to say, like, you and I haven't watched the movie, which we probably will in podcast episode.
We don't want to go to war today because the Lord of the Land says hey. That's such a class song.
No, yeah, but we haven't seen it, but it had some of the clips from that movie. But it's funny how it would show a clip, but then when it showed the actual pixelated characters, they looked nothing like the 1978 cartoon. So this was a PC RPG, which means
Radagast, the
per ground
pedophile detective.
So a PC RPG.
Wait, is it a real player game?
No,
real person game.
You got the first word wrong.
Real? Oh, really? Oh, damn. I have no idea. What's an RPG?
The RPG is role-playing game.
I got some of the word. I got game right.
Yeah, usually a role-playing game is when your character makes choices that will impact the game later on. So do with that what you will.
That's when you ask your partner to dress up as Leia from that scene in Jabba the Hutt. She tells you to feck off.
Yeah. No, I want her to dress up as Jabba. My role play.
I dress up as Jabba every day.
Oh, cool. The body of a god, a Buddha.
That's my natural form.
But this game looked pretty similar in style to the Pokemon games on the Nintendo, because it just kind of looked like that whole vibe. You would play as Frodo, and you try to build up a fellowship and wander around using non-combat skills such as digging, reading books, exploring, and interacting with other NPCs by typing keywords into the box until something worked and you would gain new information. So I've seen some playthroughs and people got very frustrated with this game. They'd like come up to a character and they'd like type in Nazgul and they'd be like, I don't know that one. It's pretty much like Alexa when you ask her to do something and she's just completely useless. But nearly every key, like, it has to be something very specific.
Yeah.
Nazgul, I don't know. Sword, don't know.
It's like mom trying to speak to Alexa and like giving her really specific things, and Alexa's is like, I don't know what you're saying to me.
Yeah. Well, I love the way mom like just doesn't use her properly. She's like, what time is it in Australia, Alexa?
And then the final list is like, bling.
Yeah. So this game was received moderately well as a fun, interesting adventure, but had many AI problems, and fans weren't happy that this was only part one of a story, which is very understandable.
Mm-hmm.
Where there's a wit, there's a way.
So that brings us to the trilogy of Lord of the Rings games. So in 2002, The Fellowship of the Ring was released 9 months after the movie, and it was a well-polished hack and slash game with RPG elements to it as well. I never actually played this game. I don't think you ever played the game either, but I just remember it being quite cartoony for my liking when I loved the style of the movie so much. I don't know, do you know the game?
I don't even know that. I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure I only the first Lord of the Rings game that I owned was the Two Towers, so I don't think I've ever even seen the gameplay of the Fellowship. I don't remember what it looked like. Did it look different to the Two Towers?
Yeah, it was
more
very
cartoonish.
It was very cartoonish. Like, I think you play as Frodo, and you're like a tiny hobbit wandering, like running around like Spyro kind of style, and like collecting coins. And there's these huge things. Now, I think it was well received, but I never really liked it. But that kind of brings me on to 2002's The Two Towers. The interesting thing was this game was released just 1 month after the Fellowship game, most likely due to different publishers and developers. And this was probably your first Lord of the Rings video game. Actually, you just said that to me, didn't you?
So they weren't made by the same. Production company.
No, the 2002's The Two Towers was actually made by EA Games, and I think this might have been one of the first ones. They went into a contract with Lord of the Rings games at EA Games.
So did they know that there was a Fellowship game coming out, or did they just say, we're going to start with the Two Towers?
No, I think they're in cahoots with each other. I'm not 100% sure,
right?
But I think they knew about each other's games coming out. But anyways, this was your first game, right? Because I remember playing lots and lots.
Yeah,
of it
this game was absolutely epic. I remember also that came out, and the Return of the King game came out when the movies were still in the cinema at that time, and so it was just like Lord of the Rings mania at that time, and I was obsessed, and that game was so good. It was I destroyed that game many times.
I think my memories are just watching you play the game first and foremost, probably for years before I even attempted to kind of go at it myself.
Yep.
Like I remember,
you gotta learn to walk before you can run, Dave. You gotta watch me before I can give the controller over to my Padawan.
I think it worked out for Mum would come in and be like, "Are you guys playing the game?" And you'd be playing it, and I'd be like, "Yeah, we're having such good fun.
We are sharing."
But the interesting thing was, even though there was a Fellowship game, this game was actually based on the first and second film's events. So the first level was the battle on the slopes of Mount Doom, and the last 3 levels are based at Helm's Deep. Do you actually remember the levels, like the Deeping Wall was one of the cooler levels where you'd have to run up and down the deeping wall and knock down the ladders.
You have to kick off the ladders. Yeah, that was so cool. That oh man, the amount of just speaking about this now, it brings back such memories of like tension and like nervousness when you're just like getting so like, oh my god, there's so many ladders, I need to kick them all off, and there's so many Urukai coming up, and you were just like, oh man, yeah.
And there was like a little mini map in the top right corner that would like show like red dots where there's ladders, and then there would be a bar of like where the amount of orcs on, and you think you're doing well at one side, and then you see like 7 dots on the other side, and you're like, no.
Oh yeah, you had to keep your eye on that. You had to keep your eye on that little like the little map that was in the corner, and that was so good. It would make you so nervous and you'd get so anxious.
Such a good game.
Amazing.
Frodo carries the fate of us all. We must defend him.
So about this game, before each level, you had a selection of either Aragorn, Legolas, or Gimli, and they had their own fighting style and finisher moves. Each kill would be graded as fair, good, excellent, or perfect, depending on if you received damage and what kind of skill move you used.
Oh, you could get like excellent mode and stuff, didn't you?
Yes.
If you got like a load of kills in a row, you get excellent mode, and then everybody you killed after was like excellent. I think like when we got good at those games, we used to just basically our goal was try to get all of our kills in like what was it? Fair, good, perfect. Excellent and perfect. Sorry, it wasn't excellent mode; it was perfect mode.
Yeah, perfect.
So
mode,
you'd always be trying to get so many kills as like an excellent or a perfect, because which would be if you were like hacking away at some guy for ages and he was hitting you, then if you killed him eventually, that'd be a fair kill. But like you were like, I want to parry this guy and get him with one swipe or something, and that would be an excellent.
Exactly. And it depended on the finishers as well. Yeah,
a few of those in a row would lead to a perfect, and then you were like, I'm on perfect. It's like when you're playing what was the name of that game? Was it NBA Jam or something like that, when you were like, he's on fire, and then like when you're playing basketball, you just shoot from anywhere and the ball would just turn into a flame and you were just sinking them from like halfway. I think it was called NBA Jam, if I remember correctly. But it's just like when you do something good over a period of time, you build up to this perfect mode, and then just everything you do after that is perfect, and that lasts for I don't know, 5 seconds, 10 seconds or something like that. But that was so good. Such a cool like little addition to those kind of games.
Yeah, it was a great idea. And just when you were bringing up NBA Jam or whatever it is, it kind of reminded me of GTA. Was it GTA 2 as well, with the Kill Frenzy?
Oh man, yeah. Kill Frenzy. We'd have to run over the whole Elvis fan club.
Yeah,
and like get the flamethrower out.
Oh, the Elvis fan club! It was just these black dots with little red things sticking out the sides of them, running around in a line.
Yeah, they were just like, you just hear them walking by. They'd be like, "Hey, baby!"
Oh my
things
god,
like
that's a game I need to play again.
Yeah, GTA 1 and 2 were that's where it was at.
I was explaining about the perfect and the fair, good, excellent, or perfect things. These would translate into points, which could be used to purchase new schools. I wish new moves and skills unique to each player. So I remember all the. Do you remember all the skills?
I remember. It's all coming back to me now. I remember there was so
good.
There was so many things called like there was so many skills that were called like something Bane. I think we spoke about this in the podcast before, with like swords that were called, this is like Dragon's Bane or this is Orc's Bane. And I was like, there's loads of. I think it was maybe like the first time I'd ever heard the word Bane when I was like, I suppose 12 or 13 years old, and I was playing, and it was like, you've got a new move called Urukai Bane or something, and it was just like, this was how you would slaughter an Urukai with this awesome
or Hewer as well. They had the word Hewer.
Yeah, or Cure. Yeah, Hewer.
Cure. I got a cure for that COVID there. So I just want to have a did you know? Weirdly enough, the game was released before the movie and contained exclusive clips that hadn't even been released in any movie trailer. So it was like kind of bananas that you could play this game a couple of months before the movie and you could be watching some clips that were probably supposed to be exclusive to the movie. And I don't know, did Peter Jackson know that much about it? Like, that would not happen in this day and age, especially if it was like a Marvel or a Disney or something. Like, everything's locked down.
I don't know if I've ever told you this story, but when I was when The Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King came out in the cinema, I was such a massive nerd that my mum had like given me a note to my teacher to say that I could leave school at like I can't remember, like the movie came out at maybe 12 o'clock or something, midday. So I had a note that I could leave school at like 11 o'clock. I went in for like 2 hours and I left school for the entire day to go watch The Return of the King. And I remember going into like school that morning. I was so excited. I've been looking forward to this movie for so long. And I told some of my classmates, I was like, oh, I'm leaving school today at like whatever time. They were like, why? I said, my mum said that I can go in and watch the Return of the King. And one of them was like, oh, class, I just finished the game yesterday and Gollum bit the finger off Frodo in the thing.
No.
Said that to me a couple of hours before I went in. He just said it like that. And I was like, what? I was just in shock. And then I basically, while I was watching the movie, the whole time I was just saying to myself in my head, like, no, this is just a game. That was a game alternative. They can't have used the actual thing from the end of the movie. And I was kind of like trying to like lie to myself the whole way through the movie. But somebody had basically just told me the ending a couple of hours before I went to see it because they had completed the game.
That's such a dick move. No, you told me about that before with getting the note to leave class, but I didn't know the actual ending was spoiled on you.
Oh, that traumatized me. Me.
You poor child.
I know, yeah. I still enjoyed it though.
I'm curious about the note. Did the note say why you were leaving, or
I don't remember. I don't know. I just looking back at it now.
Was it like Johnny's constipated and has to come home at this time, or is it like Johnny's going to see the Return of the King?
Johnny has popcorn deficiency and he needs to go in and eat a lot of it in a special place called the cinema. I've no idea, but it was looking back at it now, I can't believe Mum actually went for that and allowed me.
Miss Sinnott, if you're listening, we're very, very sorry.
This is secondary school. Miss Sinnott was in primary school.
Yeah, he was in secondary school.
I was in third year in secondary school. Yeah.
All right, very good.
Which is like a major exam year, and I was just like, I gotta leave to go watch Lord of the Rings.
I have to skip this exam. Good thing it didn't come out in the summertime because you would have been screwed.
Never have I seen such axe work, Master Dwarf.
Not any such bow skill.
So this 2002 Two Towers, oh my god, that's a lot of twos. 2002 Two Towers movie. It was massively well received and was one of the biggest console selling games in both 2002 and 2003. It was hailed for its seamless transition from the movie clips to interactive gameplay. So there was lots of clips like before you'd start a level, and as the character would talk, I'm sure you remember, it would just like seamlessly blend into gameplay mode.
Yeah, and the graphics were amazing at that time as well. It's like, oh my god, it's so real. And if you look back at it,
I was watching the reviews actually, and some people said these graphics are insane. And in fairness, when you look at a couple of years before, where they've got like Pokemon style graphics.
Well, yeah, for the improvement that they made was incredible. Well, like, I mean, you speak about Pokemon as if Pokemon came out afterwards.
Yeah, sorry.
But they were just made to look kind of 80s style, like kind of Mario, I think. But definitely for the time, the graphics were like groundbreaking. And but like if you look back at it now, and their heads are like their head could be like 6 pixels just stuck together, and it's really like square or whatever. But you're still just like, wow, I can't believe it.
Yeah, I know, it's mad.
We have held women and children are safe for now.
The sound design from the game and the realistic style added to the authenticity, and it featured the cast of the films voicing the characters in the game and the entire soundtrack, even including some music that wasn't used in the films but they used in the game. But that is so cool. I'm gonna have to like go back and replay this game just to hear like some extra bit of Howard Shore that's not even in the movies.
Wow, yeah.
I wanted to ask you as well, do you remember that there is a bonus level? And do you remember what it is?
In the Two Towers game?
Yeah.
No, I'm really... Every time you say something now, it's jogging a memory, and I'm like, oh yeah. But like, no, I mean, if you say it to me, I might remember, but no, I have no idea.
So it's in Orthanc. Okay, no, I thought I'd get your memory back there. So it's in Orthanc, where you start off on the ground floor and fight easy goblins, but you move up through the 20 levels of the tower, fighting harder and harder opponents until eventually you face Saruman on the top of the tower.
Wow.
If you win, then you unlock Isildur as a playable character for the game. And
yeah.
And like, if you win, you get to be Isildur, even though the first level of the game is like a tutorial where you play as Isildur, but then you get to like go back and play the whole game as Isildur again. But do you remember that? Like,
yeah, I remember getting Isildur, and I was like, who's this guy? I don't even want a Isildur because like I didn't really give any importance to Isildur at the time because I'm just like, I don't care. He's not Aragorn. Why would I want him?
When the movies are coming out, it's all Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli show, isn't it?
Yeah.
But this game is so replayable, and I'd say we finished it a buttload of times.
Oh man, I think I want to like go look on Wallapop or one of those kind of online things now where you can buy things secondhand. I'm going to try and find a PS2 and buy those games because man, I'm getting some serious nostalgia.
It still holds up. Like I was watching the videos and I was like, this is fairly just button mashing, but it's not. Like it's really well thought out, and like the upgrading and the skills and just buying new skills
and all that. That was so like new for game. Well, for me at that time, I didn't play it. I wasn't huge into I wasn't huge into gaming. I liked a lot of sort of those, I suppose, RPGs, which I've just learned what they are. Role-playing games. I didn't know. I was just like those kind of where you're running around as a character, and I really enjoyed those kind of games, but I didn't play that many of them. So that was definitely new to me, where you could like, you're like getting experience points and you were using those to buy new skills and to buy healing techniques and all that kind of stuff. That was it was really, I thought it was incredible. But for me, it was very new.
Yeah, I just want to say as well about a role-playing game, RPG, that would be, this wouldn't really be an RPG. This would just be a normal like third-person action, kind of like a shooter, except you're swinging a sword. RPG would be more like, a game where you go up to a character and they ask you a question. You've like 4 different options of an answer or that kind of thing. Just to make sure that you're not confused.
I'm still not going to get it.
You put the disc in the machine. But anyways, you also got to unlock plenty of cool bonuses like the Lord of the Rings cast interviews and like artwork and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They were great fun.
I remember that. I think I remember that more from the third game, from the Return of the King, where you unlock loads of artwork and you unlock like interviews with the cast. And I remember unlocking some interviews with the Hobbits and with like, you unlock one with Frodo or with like Elijah Wood and with all the Hobbits, and they're talking about who's the best gamer, and and Elijah Wood was like, oh yeah, I remember one time I just kind of closed my eyes and the remote control just hovered in front of me, but it only happened a couple of times. Like and he's just like, they're just messing around, like but it's really cool.
Yeah, I watched all those videos back in research for this because they're so dorky though. They're so young. Like Elijah's like 18 when he's doing it, and
they're so young.
And I always remember that little video or that clip of Dominic Monaghan taking the piss out of Billy Boyd, being like, "Hang on a minute now, which one is X there?" He's like, "Press X, press X." Hang on a minute now, which one is X?
Because I think I saw it a while ago, and I remember Billy Boyd. He's like, he has such a funny quote where he says like, they're interviewing him and they're talking about the games. And Billy Boyd says, "I really think I am an extremely gifted gamer."
Yes.
The only problem is I haven't opened that gift and given it to myself yet. I was like, that is an incredible quote. I need to use
Billy.
Just to be gifted or something. It's amazing.
What a hero.
Actually, I was watching, nothing to do with gaming, but I was watching some behind the scenes of Lord of the Rings recently. And I was watching... Yeah, that's
of course.
My downtime. I was watching some behind the scenes of the Two Towers, and it was showing Merry and Pippin, so Billy and Dominic hanging out together, and the cameraman, whoever was recording it, kind of walks into their trailer, and it was just the two of them standing in the corner pretending to be measuring their dicks. And they were
I saw that. They're like in the corner to the camera.
Yeah, and they're like, "Oh, yours is quite stringy, and yours is kind of like yours is kind of short and chubby," and all this. And then they're like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't see you there." And it's like, they were just obviously having so much fun just hanging out, and they were just two messers, and they were only like, they're only so young at the time. Well, how old were they? I suppose Billy Boy was probably like 30, and Dominic Monaghan would have been
probably
like
in his 20s,
24, 25. Yeah,
I'm not sure. If anyone knows, let us know.
I think Billy Boy was probably still like, I think he was around 30 or maybe around that age, but he was still acting like a complete baby or a complete child.
Yeah, I love the two of them. Can't wait for their podcast. The podcast is probably out by now, so
yeah,
and we're enjoying it very much.
Yes, I loved last week's episode
that we featured on.
Please let us on your podcast.
I've actually made the controller float, and without touching anything, I've managed to play the game. It's only happened a few times, but...
I am certainly a lot better than Dom.
Billy is awful.
one of the worst game players of all time.
So, on to 2003's Return of the King. Very similar to the Two Towers, but built on all the positive elements and a more polished look, graphic and motion-wise. This time you could actually choose a huge amount of characters, such as Sam, Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, Gandalf, Frodo, Merry, Pippin, and one more. Do you know who the last one is?
I wasn't listening to what you were saying.
Exactly, correct. There is no more.
There's no more.
No, there is. It's Faramir. I just thought it was kind of random. It was like all the, like everyone.
The main heroes.
Yeah, it was everyone bar Boromir because he's dead. And then it's just like, here's Faramir. But anyways.
Faramir Maggot.
This game could be played in co-op mode, meaning 2 players.
Yeah.
And unlike the linear predecessor, you can choose the path of which way you wanted to play the levels. So it wasn't just like you finish one level, you go into the next one. Do you remember it was like the menu?
Yeah, there was a menu and it had like it was like looking at this big wall or this vertical kind of there was like 3 different.
It looked like Rivendell.
It was like
going
a tree.
in and seeing a big like painting of like there was like a painting on the left and a painting on the right, and then a big kind of painting of a tree with the levels.
Yes, but they would like light up the ones that you could actually click into, wasn't it?
Exactly.
And you would unlock different ones.
So you would play the first level at the bottom, and then it would unlock
That unlocked
the next 3.
Yeah. That was really cool. I probably remember this game more than the Two Towers. The Two Towers, my main memories are of like the Deeping Wall. That is just like that's, I don't know, for me that I have such a strong memory of playing that and just loving it. But for me, between the 2 games, I remember the Return of the King game more.
Certain levels would have certain characters. So there would be paths of the hobbits like Osgiliath and Shelob the Lair, paths of the king for Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, and it's obvious where they go, and then paths of the wizard for levels like Minas Tirith and Isengard. You'd basically play as Gandalf on paths as wizard, but if you were playing in co-op, then you could also play as like Aragorn or Legolas.
I was going to ask you, because I remember playing, for example, in Osgiliath as like Sam. Were you able to play those levels as, for example, Gandalf? Were you able to do that, or was it just you had to be one of the people in that scene?
Yeah, so it worked out that if you were playing co-op, or if you were playing single player, you could play as like Frodo or Sam, or if you were co-op, it could be one of the 2 again. But then there were certain levels that you could only play as one person in the single player campaign, but if you're playing co-op, then you could
bring in a random other player.
Bring in, but it would still be a select random, like they would take either Aragorn, Legolas or Gimli, or and I think am I right in saying this? I think Merry, Pippin and Faramir are only unlocked at the end of the game, and you can't play as any of them in single player, but you can only play them as a co-op in like certain levels. So that's
very, very special. I don't remember playing with any of those characters.
No, I just remember them always being at the back, and I would never go near them.
Because also, wasn't it that like you'd play with? I remember like when I was playing, you had this kind of rotation thing at the beginning when you're choosing your character. So you'd flick over to like Gandalf, and he'd have like always their levels would increase with the amount that you play with them, the amount of experience points that you get, the amount of things that you like, their skills that you buy. So eventually, you'd have Gandalf on level like 38. And like, Aragorn on level like 29, and then you've like Pippin on level 0, and you're like, why would I ever want to play with Pippin? Because he's just so far behind now that, it just didn't make sense at the time.
But there was a thing in the game as well. I'm trying to remember if this is in the Return of the King, but it was definitely in the Two Towers, where you could buy, let's say you could buy a skill, and let's say a skill is 5,000 points, and that's how much you spend on that. But you could spend 6,000 or 6,500 to get the same skill, but for everyone. And it was just like, why would you ever just get it for the one person? So I can't remember if they had that in the Return of the King, but that was an interesting feature they had.
That is interesting.
One of the worst things about this game is probably the camera angle. Do you remember how annoying the camera is, especially at the level, the Paths of the Dead, where you have to run back to the start of the level after completing the level when the whole cave collapses?
Oh, yeah. And is it like, the way, for example, in Call of Duty or something, or some game like that, where you've got the 2 analog sticks, and one of them is like to move forward and backwards, and the other one is to like change your view. Is that the way it works? Or is there that doesn't exist in this?
No,
you only have one camera view.
No, one of the interesting things about both these games is so basically if you walk into a certain area, the camera angle might completely change so that it's facing the front of your character rather than the back, and they did it so they wanted to make it look like a movie almost. So sometimes, let's say you're Gandalf and you're going through Fangorn Forest and you're approaching Isengard, the camera would zoom out and there's nothing you could do you can't change the camera. It would just zoom out to show like the horizontal picture of Isengard, and that can mess you up so many times.
So is it correct to think that, for example, if I'm running through the Mountain of the Dead, and if I'm holding like the analog stick up in order to run in a certain direction, and then suddenly I move through a doorway, and then I need to hold down because the camera angle switches around. And so it's like if I'm holding up and I come through the doorway and then suddenly I'm running in the wrong direction, I'm like, oh crap, I need to change around. Right, yeah, I do have a kind of, I have a little memory of that.
That was the annoying thing. And I'm trying to remember, did you use the analogs in that game or was it just the arrows? No, you did use the analogs. Pretty sure. Yeah, there was 360. But yeah, I was just going to ask as well, like, what else do you remember from the game? Do you remember other things, any other levels?
Yeah, as I said, the Return of the King is probably the game that I remember the best. So obviously, I remember, I have a very strong memory of the opening scene, the opening level where it's Gandalf at, I can't say it's a very strong memory and I can barely remember it now either. Where the hell are you? I
just haven't unlocked that memory.
Yeah, exactly. Haven't given it to myself yet. But Gandalf, and he's there. He's like outside the wall of, I can't even remember where it is. Are you at Helm's Deep? I believe maybe the morning of Helm's Deep when you're when you're just about to defeat the enemy, and you're fighting there, and then you like have to climb up the wall of some building and you go through, and that's where the game really actually starts. It kind of like it starts there, and then you play for like 5 minutes, a very short little opening scene, and then you get like some footage of like the actual like opening of the movie, and they start to speak to you, and then I think Gandalf is the narrator as well. And apart from that, I remember.
Do you remember the Pelennor Fields level, the one where you play in front of that big gate or that big kind of I don't know, it's like a wall with a big gate, and there's like spears in the ground, and you have to like throw them at the trolls and all that.
And there's catapults. There's catapults, and you can set off the catapults, and and then eventually you get to the door, and you can climb up, and there's like trolls trying to break through, and you're spilling like hot oil over the edges and stuff. Yeah. That's class.
Done. Jeez, because I actually kind of forgot about that part where you're spilling over the lava.
No, I remember that. I remember being in front of that big door. Where the hell was that door? Where was...
Like, I think that's when Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli basically come off the boats and they're trying to get to Pelennor Fields. I think that's what they were going for. Like, they had a lot of creative license, of course, but...
Yeah, that was deadly.
There was also
shooting the Mumakil.
I was just about to say that, yeah. Shooting at the Mumakil passing by.
Shooting at the Mumakil passing by, where you're like shooting you've got your bow and arrow, and then you've also got the like again the kind of big huge catapult kind of ones as well.
Ballistas.
Yeah, I remember the Black Gate as well, where you're by the Black Gate, and you've got the there's like this kind of circular area where there's again spears in the ground. You can pick up the spears and throw them at the guys that come in at you, and
that was kind of like you could see a huge amount of orcs in the background, but they weren't really, they weren't NPCs, and like people would just like pop in from the sides.
Also, I was going to say, at the Black Gate, Aragorn is finally like donning his new cloaks, and he's just like, he's wearing his new robe, and he's got this big like cloak, and it's like this red and blue kind of cloak, and it just, he looks incredible.
He looks hot AF. I just have one or two cool things I wanted to say about the game as well. It was actually made during production of the movie, so the Witch King's old design is actually the game version. So they hadn't completed the Witch King.
Which one?
Theoden.
So
like the Witch King, his original design was just like a big, huge, tall helmet with spikes on the top, and I think, from what I remember from behind the scenes of the movie, they scrapped it because they thought it looked too much like Sauron. But at this point in the game, they had already like made the character before they decided to scrap that idea in the film. So I think that's pretty cool that the game version of the Witch King is like an unseen version from the movie.
That is cool.
There are also one or two scenes that Peter Jackson didn't use at all in the movie as clips before gameplay. Like there's one scene of like all orcs lining up on the Battle of Pelennor Fields, and it's like daytime and it looks really nice outside. So this clip obviously wasn't used for the films, but they stole it and put it into the game. So I thought that was kind of cool as well. And cool. Like we talked about the behind the scenes featuring the hobbits talking about their video game skills, that actually appeared in this one.
Class.
I have a token I was bidden to show thee.
Frodo's mithril vest. Poor Hobbit must be dead.
So the next one I wanted to talk about was 2004's The Third Age. The company that produced this game is also EA Games.
EA Games.
Challenge everything.
And they only had the rights to the movie trilogy and not the book, so they couldn't expand upon any other stories. So they could only make up their own characters. Like, they couldn't use any of the characters. You know what I'm trying to say to you there. Good man.
Yeah.
Good lad. Good.
I know what you're saying. Yeah, I remember I remember when I started playing this game and I was like, "Who the hell is this guy? Is this like
Barithor,
Boromir's friend or something?" Barithor, yeah. And I was like, "Is this supposed to be like?" Do you remember like Pro Evolution? They would play like, instead of being like Manchester United, they were like Man Red, Man Blue. So I was like, have they just like not got the rights for the? Is this supposed to be Boromir or whatever? But then I didn't realize for ages until it was like, oh no, they're just different characters that are around the same time.
Yeah, and they're completely made up for the game because Barithor, like, the story isn't great. Like, when you go back and play it, like, Barithor is looking for Boromir for some random reason, and I don't know, he's going off to find him, and he runs into Nazgul at the very start of the game and gets knocked out, and he's assisted by Asriel the elf, and basically they just follow the Fellowship around Middle-earth, and they gather new companions and meet some of the film's main characters as well for key moments of the game. But other than that, like, so the story isn't great, but the game was class.
The game, Dave.
But think of the game. It was a game where the player would just roam around almost an open world map, finding treasures and unlocking new paths, but every so often would run into combat. And the combat in this game, again, was similar to Pokemon, I think. Sorry, not the combat, like the way you would run into
I was just about to say that I remember this game vividly because I remember... Well, vivid is never a good word that I should use when I speak about my memory because it's not great.
I have no memory of this place.
But I remember there were certain times that you were running through the map, and similar to Pokemon, you're like, you can see where you want to get to, and then there keeps like flashing up this thing on the screen, but the eye. You've got a challenger, you've got a whatever.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Is it the eye? Is it?
Yeah,
what
the
is
eye
it?
like flashes
what
up.
Flashes? What flashes up in the Pokemon games?
Don't know. I think it just comes like the screen kind of cuts in half and goes like, I don't know, duel or something, challenge.
Yeah.
But it's in the Pokemon when you're like going through the long grass, then it could just like hit you at any time.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the same in this game. It could just hit you at any time. That you're running along and you're like, oh, I can see that's the place that I want to go, and then suddenly it's just this flash and the eye comes up, and it's like you have to fight something, and you're like, ah. So like sometimes the battle scenes are class and they're really cool and they're duels, and it's kind of like Final Fantasy style fighting again, where you know I've got a turn and then he's got a turn over and back, and it's very much like strategy based. Okay, I only have this many points. I can't use my best move. I need to also use these points to give myself some health, and you really have to think out your move. So it's cool. It's like it's almost like a chess game, but there's some times where you're just like, oh, I just could not be arsed fighting another orc again. And you're like, just let me get
especially
through to
when
this part.
like you just need to get a couple of meters ahead.
Yeah, exactly.
And I remember this was a game that kept me up all night because, you know, I would be like, right, I'm going to bed when I get to that point over there where I can see. Yeah. And there was a little ball in the top right corner as well that would kind of glow, and it would glow like redder and redder when you're getting close to combat.
Yeah.
And sometimes it would glow red, and then you would turn around and then it would kind of start going down again. But sometimes it would glow red and then you turn around to avoid it and then glow redder again. And then you're like, oh no, I've gone backwards and now I'm getting closer to combat. And
God.
That could be a real pain in the arse.
Yeah. But it was cool. And I think a lot of the moves in that game, a lot of the like techniques. So you could always like, didn't you have your basic moves? Like if you were like Barithor, the Gondorian, like you just had like your normal like swipe or whatever, and they all had their like base level moves, but then you could buy better moves, and they maybe use they cost more points every time you use them. But they would be like, they do this big kind of I don't know, elaborate dance before they did something, and it'd be like really kind of I remember the elf one where she did some like hand movements, and then she created this like, I don't know, like almost like the Star of David or something, and then she just like shot a big, like, I don't know, powerful wave of water at them and things like that.
Yeah, there was one where she would kind of put up her sword in the air, kind of like Arwen, and then just go like whoosh, and like shoot water at the enemy. That was like one of the more powerful elf moves.
That was cool.
But yeah, you're hitting the nail on the head there when you said it was like Final Fantasy. It's very similar to Final Fantasy X, the style of gameplay. And yeah, so the best part of the game was upgrading each player and strategically fighting each group, choosing which of your players to attack which of theirs, or heal, or cast magic, etc. So yeah, Berethor was mainly a good warrior. Adriel, or whatever her name was, she was kind of like the one that could cast spells, so she was good for like healing and stuff. And you had other characters.
I think I remember as the game went on, I kind of didn't use Berethor as much. I think he was kind of like he could give a good like hit with his sword or something. But I think as you got on, as you went up and you met like the archer and the dwarf and things like that, like they had like some really strong skills, and they had like some. I don't know. Maybe I think maybe I just used them more, and I bought stronger skills for them.
Exactly. That it depends. Like two players playing this game would have two different experiences. You could just like absolutely outmax Berethor, and he could be class. Like
I do remember buying some really cool uniform and some really cool armor for Berethor, and he had like a cool Gondorian helmet and all that kind of stuff. So I do remember I was like, oh, this armor is class, and. But maybe I just spent all the money on his armor. I didn't buy him any good moves.
I do remember actually. That was one thing you would like build up. You would like have Berethor or one of the other characters. Actually, do you remember the other names of the characters?
That's tough.
All right. Well, there's Hadhod the dwarf and Elgost the ranger. But anyways, back to
all the names are such like you said. What's the elf name? Aladriel or
just Adriel?
Yeah. Adriel, you're like they just cut off like Gal, yeah, and it's just
like she was actually supposed to be Galadriel's assistant. So there you go.
All right, well, yeah, and like Berethor is such like a like Denethor with Boromir at the beginning, like I don't know, it's such a like complete rip off, but like kind of like as we said before, Mad Red and Merseyside Red, and those teams that you play with in Pro Evo.
Yeah, and I was just thinking there, you could like kit out Berethor, and you'd have the gauntlets, you'd have the sword, you'd have the helmet and the cape and the breastplate, and they would all match and they'd be perfect. And then you would like find one new piece of like, let's say, a new breastplate, and you're like, ooh, this is starting off his new kit, and then you'd have to like build up to that and be like, I wonder what his cape's going to look like.
His away kit.
Yeah, exactly.
Perhaps a book of secrets.
Can you lead us there? Time is running out.
I think we have found more than we bargained for.
It is a Balrog of Morgoth.
So some fans thought it was unoriginal and lacked story, whereas fans like you and I absolutely loved it. You do basically everything the Fellowship did in the movies, only like a day later, but I thought it was done quite well. And this game has the same sound effects and soundtrack as the movie. Also, Ian McKellen came back and narrated all the cutscenes, so he does some awesome narration in this.
I had said that Ian McKellen narrated like one of the other games. Maybe I was confusing with this game.
In the other games, they had Ian McKellen back as well, and he may have done some narration, but in this game, it's like new narration.
He almost like does the whole prophecy, doesn't he? Like the whole intro.
I think what if they have the prophecy.
I think at the beginning of the game there was a big like cut scene where there had like loads of images, and it was basically the prophecy. It wasn't the entire thing, but it wasn't the whole prologue, but I think a lot of it, and basically was Ian McKellen saying. Not word for word, but almost as if they said to him, "You just tell us the prophecy in your own words." And
yeah,
he was like,
exactly, and that's exactly it. It was cool because if I take that as a soundbite now, it'll sound like it's from Lord of the Rings, but it's completely new script, which I think is awesome.
And in this age, the evil powers again arise. Yet some hoped for unity in the face of the coming darkness.
Some of the bosses included Sharku, the Balrog, Grima, which was weird because he's really, really hard to kill in the game. And then the final boss of the game, do you know who that is?
Wait, so tell me again. So Sharku.
Well, there's lots, but I've just included
Sharku, the Balrog, Grima.
You also fight the Nazguls as well.
Yeah, but you fight them a few times, don't you?
You fight them a few times, yeah. Actually, at the very start of the game, you fight them, you can't win. That's what like starts the game off, basically.
You have to die. So what was the question? Who was the last boss?
Yeah, do you remember who that is?
Final boss. I don't know. I can't remember. I mean, probably.
Once I say it to you, it's gonna come rushing back. It's pretty dumb.
It's all coming back. It's all coming back to me now.
Is it?
No, not at all. The mouth. Not the mouth. That wouldn't make sense. I mean, oh wait. Is it like Frodo?
Is it your inner demons?
You have to fight Frodo to get the ring back off him after you've stolen it.
Yes, it takes like a whole group of an archer, a warrior, a dwarf, and an elf. You have to kill him.
Frodo's just there rolling around, escaping all the attacks. I don't know. I can't remember.
So you all climb the Tower of Barad-dûr and fight the Eye.
You fight the Eye.
Yeah. So basically, you still use all the same moves. So you'd be standing there. And
I do
just
remember
run
that.
up and like it looks so funny seeing Hadhad, the dwarf, just running up and just go, "Hurrah!" and then just running back to his place. And this huge eye is just like, I don't know. I can't even remember the moves that the eye could use, but it could like kill you with flame and
it could look into your soul.
Exactly. I just think it's kind of a dumb thing.
That's a little bit dumb, yeah.
Especially being the final boss.
There is no life in the void.
I don't even know if I ever completed that game.
Oh, really?
That sounds familiar to me, but
well, you might have only played it, or you might have only beaten it once. But I'd say you.
Yeah, I'd say I must have finished it because it would have been weird if I just sort of stopped. I do remember there were times where I just kind of got frustrated with it, and like I said before, of those times where you're just battling people that are just like they're
a hindrance.
They're not that they're not that difficult. It's not like, oh, this is a cool tactical battle. It's like I just want to get from A to B, and I'm getting stopped by all these like wargs and wild men and stuff, and you're kind of going, oh, I just want to get to that place, and it's just like annoying more than
it can be a little bit frustrating.
There is maybe a little bit of that in the game in the game, but I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the game, so I'd say I probably did. Maybe as you said, I probably just completed it the one time, as opposed to other Lord of the Rings games where it was just like, I'm going to play this starting again, and I'm going to do it the whole game with Frodo or whatever.
Yeah, like when I was looking at the reviews, loads of people are saying, "Oh, you can play it, it's deadly, but it's not replayable at all." And I would beg to differ because I remember so many times going, "I'm going to go back and replay that game again." I loved it.
Yeah, I would like to go back and play it now.
Yeah,
definitely,
exactly.
I mean, well, all these games that you're speaking about, I'm like, oh man, I really wish I had PS2 now, and I could go back and relive those memories.
And there, at the Council of Elves, a great and desperate plan was conceived.
So 2004's Battle for Middle-earth was a real-time strategy game very similar to Age of Empires or Total War, where you command a faction of either Gondor, Rohan, Isengard or Mordor and play through the events of Lord of the Rings. And it's one of these where, you go out and you get resources and come back and you build your armies and yada yada. Again, as it's an EA game, they had license to use the soundtrack, voices and sound effects from the movie, and it really immerses the player in the game. You control battalions of soldiers and usually control at least one hero or villain, but most of the time you're controlling lots of them, really. Like you can, in some levels, you control the entire fellowship. Each of them have special abilities, and there's also an ability tree with abilities to unlock and help swing the battle even more, such as using the Palantir to view faraway locations on the map, or calling in reinforcements of elves, Undead Army, the Balrog, Tom Bombadil, and even Sauron himself. All of these would be with like a short time span. So it's pretty cool. Like you'd buy all these abilities, and it might take like 10 minutes for Sauron to load up, and then you're like, right, I'm going to call him in when I'm like losing the battle.
That's cool.
A new age is at hand. An age I shall rule.
It's cool as well that like they let you buy players like Tom Bombadil who didn't feature in the movies.
Yeah,
so that's kind of cool as well.
And
Obviously, all of the big Bombadil fans out there that were so annoyed they didn't make it into the movie, it's like that's little. Here you go. Here's a little bit of relief for them. Like we do believe that he's an important character. Here you go.
And also, I remember like it made sense for calling in Sauron or the Balrog or these big things that would literally just swing their mace or swing their big stick or whatever and like smash away enemies. But then you could call in Tom Bombadil, and he's a tiny little character, but he still kind of has the same effect. He kind of runs around and just punches armies.
He sings a song to the opposing army.
He does. He like when you actually call him and you hear the music coming in like diddle-a-ding, diddle-a-ding,
ring a ding dillo.
Yeah, and he's like, I'm Tom Bombadil. It's class. I have to go back and play that again. I actually went and replayed those games over the summer and absolutely loved them. Completed the first and second one.
Deadly. Well done.
The Urukai will not be stopped.
The physics of the game is extremely satisfying also. Seeing trolls and Moomakil, like we just talked about, punching men into the sky, but also the detailed strengths and weaknesses. For example, pikemen are brilliant against cavalry, and equipping flaming arrows to archers would be very good against Ents and Moomakil and buildings. So everything kind of had a weight and a reason to it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Hosting epic and fantastic looking battles and reimagining Helm's Deep and Minas Tirith sieges from both sides is what the game is really all about. It's so satisfying to build up an army, upgrade them, and then with the click of a few buttons just sit back and enjoy the chaos of their destruction. Also, the warriors you upgrade gain experience and you can continue into the next level if they survive. So you would have loads of battalions, and maybe you've got like one battalion that you've had for like 10 levels and they'll be like maxed out and they'll have all the upgraded equipments and they kind of survive. So it was really cool. It was really cool for its time.
That sounds class. I've never played that game, but like, yeah, well, I'd love to go back and give it a go. It sounds really deadly the way that you're describing it.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about it. I think because in other games, like all the action games we've talked about, where you're running around and your mind is kind of thinking about constantly killing orcs and stuff. This one is really cool, where you sit back at the start of every level and all you're doing is just like working on building buildings and finding trees to cut down or finding resources or whatever, and the music is playing and you're just so immersed, and then you can zoom in and see how like the archer academy is doing, or you can zoom into the barracks and all that kind of stuff. Now the graphics weren't amazing, but it's just cool. I think the whole music element really added to the game.
Oh, well, I think the music element added massively to Lord of the Rings, not just in the games, in every area that we've seen. Lord of the Rings,
like. Oh, of course. But I just mean like the immersion, the way you kind of felt and it wasn't. I feel like the soundtrack they use in that game, it's not like the normal soundtrack they use in Lord of the Rings games where they have the main theme and all the big ones. It's kind of the more tranquil, relaxing music, and then obviously when you go into a battle, then the music hypes up and it goes big. And they actually have their own soundtrack in there as well, but it's really well mixed with the score of Howard Shore, so you wouldn't even notice a difference.
I represent the elves of the Woodland Realm.
But anyways, the sequels for Battle for Middle-earth were Battle for Middle-earth 2 and The Rise of the Witch King. In number 2, you get to play as elves, dwarves and goblins, as well as the other factions during the War of the Ring in places like Erebor, Dale and the Shire. And The Rise of the Witch King was an expansion pack where you could play as Arnor and Angmar. That's all I have to say about that. Moving on.
I stand as your captain.
So 2009's Lord of the Rings Conquest. This game I think is so underrated. It's another great action slasher game in the exact style of Star Wars Battlefront, where you play as one of 4 classes. Do you know this game I'm talking about?
No, my PlayStation days ended around what the hell is it called? The Third Age. That's probably the last Lord of the Rings game that I played anyway. I didn't play any of the other ones, the newer ones, which I would like to go back and play them now, but I kind of just stopped gaming at that stage. I stopped kind of using the PlayStation and missed out.
Because all those other games we talked about were all your games, and when I played them, I was playing games that you had bought. Whereas I remember going into the shop, and I actually had to get one of my friends to buy this game because it was plus 16s at the time, and I was only a kid, and I was like, "Can you get me this game?" But Lord of the Rings Conquest, it was class. So, like I said, you play as one of 4 classes, like Battlefront. So the classes are Scout, Mage, Archer, and Warrior, and these all had their own unique abilities, like magic, and the Scout would be stealthy and can go invisible, and all that kind of stuff. Cool. And same as Battlefront, where when you die, you can respawn as another class. So when you die, the battle is still kind of going on, and it just brings you back to like the main menu of the 4 classes, and then you can either continue with another class or just use the same class again. Sure. And of course, then you get to play as heroes or villains. So you can play as both sides. You could do like the hero campaign, the villain campaign, and then every so often you're doing well in a battle, you could play as Sauron or you could play as Gimli or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The flame of Udun has been unleashed again upon the world of Middle-earth, and like his kin, the dwarf Gimli and all who dared follow him into the darkness have been slain by this creature.
2014's Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor. This is one of the newest Lord of the Rings games on the market, and it's also been acclaimed as one of the best and most original. In the same combat style as Batman Arkham games, and the same stealth-like gameplay as Assassin's Creed, you play as a ranger Talion, who seeks revenge on Sauron for the murder of his family. Talion is also bonded with the wraith Celebrimbor, and this allows him to use wraith-like abilities such as mind control and slowing down time and being really cool, which is
so Celebrimbor is a wraith?
So in this game, Celebrimbor is dead and he's a wraith, and your soul's like connector. I don't know whatever happens. They have some sort of weird intimate moment where
love at first sight.
Celebrimbor goes like into Talion's body and he's basically part of him.
I didn't know it was going to be like a triple X.
Oh, this game's over 18s, yeah. No, but he seriously is like in your body, and it's cool because like you're Talion and you're fighting and you be slashing someone with a sword, but then you press a certain button and it doesn't move, and like the wraith like comes out of you and stabs them with like a knife or something. So it's weird, but it's cool.
So you're just possessed.
Yeah, basically. It all takes place in between The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, but because it's based on the novels, the style is not of Peter Jackson's, but its own stylized version, which is one of the coolest things in my opinion. Like there's so many things that look like everything looks different. Like the orcs they don't look like the orcs from Jackson's. Like they're big and tall. They're more like Uruk-hai.
Sure. It's always weird, isn't it, when you see like people's illustrations of orcs or of any of the individual like heroes from. Usually they're illustrations that were done
artwork or something.
Yeah, from artwork or things that usually they're artworks or illustrations that were done before the movies came out, and you can see this is this person's take on what the Uruk-hai looked like or what the orcs looked like or what Saruman looked like. And when it's just like completely different, and you're kind of going, wow, that's so interesting, because now when somebody says Uruk-hai, you just have such a definite image fixed in your brain because of thanks to Peter Jackson.
Yeah.
So I think it's always interesting seeing other people's ideas of what the orcs were, when obviously I can imagine you're a young person reading The Lord of the Rings and you've got nothing to go off and you're kind of going, orcs, well, I'm going to imagine them like this. So
yeah.
I don't know, it's really cool.
It is cool, because I used to kind of hate that when I was younger, because Peter Jackson's movies were everything to me, and if I saw something else that looked that was called an orc but didn't look like his ones, I'd be like, no. But now I love seeing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and that's almost like why at the beginning of playing the Third Age, I was like, who the hell is this guy? I want to play with Boromir. If I'm playing with a Gondorian, it's going to be Boromir. I don't care about this guy. But then obviously you get into the game and it gets a lot better and you really start to enjoy it. But I remember at the beginning being like, when am I going to be Gandalf? And it's just
And that was similar to me playing this game. I was like, this is kind of weird. Like, I don't know. Fair enough, there was new characters in it, but like Gollum's in it and he doesn't look the same, and and Shelob isn't even a spider. Shelob's a woman, and like this beautiful woman.
Weird.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole other thing. I think
she's like the spider from Game of Thrones. She's just like a bald man.
A grand old city, choking on violence, corruption, and deceit. Who could possibly have any experience managing such a massive, ungainly beast?
Well, I think it's got some story too, because I know Shelob's mother is it Ungoliant or something like that? And
Ungoliant, yeah.
And in the books it just says Ungoliant took the form of a spider, and I don't know, maybe, I don't know, there's more to it, but anyways.
Ungoliant was a giant spider. If you think Shelob's big, Ungoliant was like 100 times bigger than...
But it seems like they had the option to choose, so... In this game, Shelob is a woman for whatever reason. If you guys know what the reason is, please send it in, because I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know either.
But it's also the only over 18s game, or rated for our American friends, as it's extremely gruesome. There's lots of throat cutting and beheadings and lots of blood.
Class.
And it is cool. The unique thing about the game, however, is the Nemesis system, which I don't think is in any other game. I've certainly never seen it in anything before. But this is where an orc can kill you and you return back to life with the wraith powers, of course, as normal. But that orc will then be promoted and other orcs will recognize this and they react with each other, and he will remember you if you come back to him again. He'll be like, "Oi, the last time I saw you."
No way. That's class.
Yeah, but it's not just that. It's kind of like they'll recognize you, but they've gained abilities. And this doesn't just happen if you're killed. If you like try to kill an orc and they get away, then, you know, and all the orcs look different to each other. So some are big, huge orcs, some are like little skinny ones. So let's say if a skinny one killed you, then he will come back, and he's not going to have like strengths of slashing and stuff. He'll be like a poison master and like stealthy, and it's really in depth.
He's a bit snakier.
He is a bit snakier, but promoted orcs to captains will gain respect from other orcs and gain abilities, strengths and weaknesses. There are loads of captains all over the place, actually, with their own voices, personalities, and strengths and weaknesses. So yeah, the amount of, I don't know how many voice actors they got in for this game, but there's people that say they've played it so many times, and every time they hear new voices, new personalities, all that kind of thing. So it's really a top tier game, and the sequel Shadow of War just enhances the Nemesis system even further, allowing Talion to also mind control lots of enemies and use them to lay siege on fortresses and attack other orcs.
Swine! I hate you so much. You humiliated me again and again and left me to face endless mockery. Everyone in Mordor makes fun of me now.
Finally, I have to mention probably the most popular Lord of the Rings game out there, which is 2007's Lord of the Rings Online, or just commonly referred to as LOTR. LOTR. Even though I've not played the game, it's extremely well liked by most. Here's an acronym for you now, if you want to tell me what you think it is. MMORPG. Have you ever heard that before?
Not at all, no.
MORP. So MMORPG is a massively multiplayer online role-playing game like World of Warcraft. That would probably be the most famous one.
Yeah, that is a MORP.
It is MORP.
Whatever.
It has the same cartoonish vibe, which I never really loved, but nobody can flaw its mechanics and detail. You play as an avatar that can interact with other players and NPCs, complete quests, and customize and equip items. So it's the same thing. It's a huge game that's constantly coming out with like expansion packs, and everyone seems to love it. So I'm not going to hate on it because I've never played it. I'm sure if I did play it, I would probably love it. But yeah, sounds pretty cool.
Sounds class.
Faramir's style of combat in the game, extremely energetic. It's relentless. It's high energy, high voltage action.
Also, I just wanted to mention that people love the Lego games. There's a Hobbit and a Lord of the Rings Lego game, and each are carbon copies of all the other Lego games, like Star Wars or Batman, but just Lord of the Rings version. It's great, goofy fun. I've played them and they're fun. I played the Star Wars games first and I loved them, and then I played Batman and I was like, this is the same thing, but I still love it. And same with the Lord of the Rings. So if you like that, fair enough.
Lego, the Lord of the Rings.
I have to mention that there's a new game coming in 2022. Oh, that's weird to say. It's based on stealth and it's called Gollum. So it could be cool, might be shit.
And we're going to tell you as it is. Doesn't Andy Serkis provide the voice for Gollum in this?
I thought that. I'm not sure. They released a trailer and it sounded like Andy Serkis, and that's
the trailer looks class.
Yeah, the trailer does look cool, but it's hard to know. I don't know if anyone knows if it's Andy Serkis. Please let us know.
I think I heard that from you.
Yeah, I heard that from myself too, because I watched the trailer and it was like, please send us in what your favorite game is and why. We knew we couldn't cover every single Lord of the Rings game, but we wanted to cover our favorites and some of the biggest ones. But please let us know if we didn't discuss your favorite video game. We would love to know. I know there's plenty out there, so don't berate me, but give it to me. Finally, I wanted to ask you, Johnny, what is your favorite game? And why?
Oh,
Cane Fall.
And por qué?
And por qué, mi amigo?
My favorite game. What's my favorite game? I don't know. Probably The Return of the King, I would say. Probably my favorite game. I don't know. There's been times where I really enjoy. I mean, for all the people that have listened to this, Dave has just mentioned loads of games in the last few minutes, and I haven't played any of those games. They all sound really good, but the only games I've really played properly were the Two Towers, The Return of the King, and The Third Age. And Two Towers and The Return of the King are very similar in their styles, and then The Third Age is very, very different. I really enjoyed parts of The Third Age, but I think if I were to if I had the choice to go back and buy one more of those games or buy one of those games again, I think it would be The Return of the King. I think there was so many cool features in it. There was you could play with so many different characters. Like we said as well, you were able to unlock all these different features and these little extras and illustrations and behind the scenes footage. So it was just really well created and laid out as a game. So I just really enjoyed it.
Yeah, cool.
The end.
I was interested when you said, or I was curious when you said, if I had to get one of these games again, I would get Return of the King. And I was thinking, geez, yeah, I'd probably put Return of the King ahead of the other one. But if I had to just get one of them, maybe I'd get the Third Age because it takes a million hours to get to the end. But then I suppose you could replay Return of the King a few times with every character.
Yeah, and exactly, do it with all the different characters. And as I said when we were speaking about it before, you get you just select your characters and you can select Gandalf and he's got a massive high level, and then you've always got Faramir or Pippin and they've got no level. So if you're bored, you could just be right, I'm going to start the game again from scratch with Pippin or with Faramir, and that's as good as a new game.
Yeah. How to get sick of a game in 2 weeks.
Exactly.
If I was to decide mine, I would probably go for Battle for Middle-earth, and I already said the reasons. Really, it's it's mainly the immersion, but also I love massive, big wide scope battles where you can just sit back and just look at a huge everything you've built up battling against another
that's
army.
really cool.
It's pretty cool.
As I said, if I were to go back and buy one of those games that I already played, it would probably have been that one. But I'd also love to just get a PlayStation and buy any of those games and let's just give them a go, because they all sound really cool as well.
So what would your ideal video game be like, Johnny? I want to see, when would it be set? Would it be during the Lord of the Rings? Would it be a sequel, or would it be years before? What kind of style? We've talked about so many different styles here as well. Is it a RPG or a MMORPG or a...
I'm not a gamer. It's been a long time since I've gamed on any of these things, as anybody can hear from my experience. But
noob.
I'm not noob. I'm just old fashioned. I've missed out on the last 15 years of gaming. I don't know anything that's happened. So I'm basically a noob. I don't know. There's so many with Tolkien. There's so many things. I'd love to go back and see some things from before, in maybe the first or the second age, even that'd be some. I'm sure they could make some amazing games. Obviously we know we've got the Amazon series coming out. We've got that to look forward to, and we're going to see loads of cool stories from back then as well. And I don't know. I think.
Well, I think one game that you played recently that I witnessed was Jedi Fallen Order, which is an open world game. And
that was the first time I played PlayStation in so many years. I came home for Christmas and I hooked up to your PS4 or PS whatever number it was, for PS4, and I played that game, and I was like, I hadn't experienced that feeling of being addicted to a game for so many years. I was like, oh my god, it's a good thing I don't have a PlayStation, because I would waste so many hours on this thing. But that game was class.
That was class. At Christmas we were just staying up until 4 a.m. drinking whiskey and playing Jedi Fallen Order.
You know what? There's nothing wrong with a bit of whiskey and Jedi.
I think though, if I had to pick my dream game, it would probably be an open world game, and even for Star Wars as well. When Star Wars are coming out with their next game, I would love them to do another open world game, but slightly different to Jedi Fallen Order. I would love to see a Tolkien open world game, especially maybe an RPG one like Skyrim as well, where you get to roam around and you could interact with characters and talk to them, and
like Red Dead Redemption or something.
Exactly like Red Dead Redemption. And you could do different things, maybe in Red Dead, the way you can go into saloons and casinos and play games. Maybe you could go into Hobbiton and, go to have a beer and play games.
Have a night out in the Green Dragon.
Exactly. Go to the Green Dragon, play some horseshoes.
Didn't I have a mission I needed to do? I don't know. I'm dying hungover because I was out last night in the Green Dragon.
Well, the best thing about Red Dead Redemption is you can go around fighting, but if you want, you can go around planting flowers and hunting and fishing, and you can go play, Texas Hold'em, blackjack, and you can go betting on random things. It's just endless, and I'd love something like that for Tolkien's Middle Earth. It would be deadly.
That would be very cool. Yeah.
I actually said this to my girlfriend as well. I asked her what would her ideal video game be. She was kind of like, I don't know, but I'd love to play in Rivendell or somewhere like that, and just like kind of run around and maybe not even do like combat things. Maybe kind of like the Harry Potter games where you just run around and solve mysteries and build potions and things like that. And I was like, that's pretty cool. Like, it'd be so relaxing, and just running around Rivendell doing little chores and helping out Elrond. Maybe Frodo pops in injured and you have to find the spell to cure him. And
yeah, what the hell was the games I was playing? What game was I playing over Christmas that it was like you're pushing boulders around, and was that in? That wasn't in that Star Wars game, was it?
Probably. Was it like?
Oh no.
Puzzle solving.
Oh, it was, wasn't it? Yeah, there's puzzle solving. It's almost like Tomb Raider,
it's like
or
Uncharted
like
or Tomb Raider. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that there was some of that in that Star Wars game.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there's some places where you go in and you have to use the Force to push like some big rock,
a big boulder.
Yeah.
No, I do remember that now. Yeah, that was that's cool. I always like that element in games as well. When you're in this big room and you're like spending ages in it, you're like, right, how the hell do I get out of this room? There's got to be some sort of trick. And you're like looking around for it, like, and then eventually, don't get me wrong, it can be really frustrating as well. You're like, let me out of this goddamn room. But then eventually you find it, and you're like so satisfied. You're like, oh, I have to plug this thing here. I have to move this boulder or whatever, and it's always like so cool. So yeah,
no, I love that. I love that element as well. That's a big feature in Uncharted. Those games are very linear.
Yeah, Uncharted's cool,
but like they do have these like puzzle solving tombs and stuff. So. Yeah, that's cool. Very good. I don't know, we didn't really come up with a dream game there, but we want to be inspired by you guys. So we'd love to know what your ideal Lord of the Rings game would look like, what the gameplay style would be like, when it would be set and where, what would be the main mission, and who would be the main character or characters. So please send them in, we'd love to know.
Yeah, love to hear from you guys.
Thus the third age of Middle-earth began. But the realms of man divided, and their great cities weakened. And in this age the evil powers again arise, yet some hoped for unity in the face of the coming darkness.
Well guys, that's all from us on this week's episode of the Council of Elrond. We hope you enjoyed our video game themed podcast as much as we enjoyed recording it and going through the archives of old forgotten masterpieces. Like we said, we'd love to know what your dream Tolkien video game would be. Perhaps an 8-bit adventure with Sam gardening in the Shire, or an Uncharted style of searching for the hidden city of Gondolin. Please let us know in the comments. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Also, don't forget to leave us a review on your platform of choice, and maybe consider telling a friend. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, this is goodbye.